Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for The Graduate. So The Graduate is a 1967 Mike Nichols movie. It stars Dustin Hoffman and many other people, and it follows the story of Benjamin Braddock, who is a college student, well, fresh out of college, basically, and he's going on into doing what he wants to do in his life, and he's the type of person that is very shy about things and doesn't want to live the normal, traditional life. So in this, he starts to have an affair with one of his parents' friends. And through this, many very weird things happen. I don't want to say much more than that, because that is very basic storytelling for what The Graduate is about. Really, this film is extremely untraditional in its storytelling, and giving away too much is really spoiling it. This was a film shown in the Turner Classic movie series. Basically, Turner Classic, every few weeks or so, they will re-show a movie in theaters, an older one, and this week they showed The Graduate. So I went to it at a 2 o'clock showing, and, you know, this is one of my favorite films of all time, I believe. I think it's in my top 5 at the very least. I absolutely love this movie, so I was ecstatic to see it in the theaters. So I went in expecting something great, and what I came out with was honestly an even better experience than I had going in. The Graduate on the big screen is absolutely amazing, but also seeing it, having it been 9 months, having just gone through 8th grade pretty much, almost done, this film absolutely is honestly one of my favorite films of all time. An easy label for this movie, and something that I'll absolutely call it, is the most entertaining film of all time. I honestly don't think has been a single film that has been more entertaining than The Graduate. The thing is, it's not because it has a fast pace or anything like that. It's because of how immersive it is, how detailed you are into this world. You started out, and suddenly you are caught right by the opening scene. I'll go into depth a little bit later on why the opening scene is brilliant. But you start on the opening scene, and suddenly you're interested in everything going on in this world, both because of the way it's shot, because of the way it's acted, the way it's directed, especially Dustin Hoffman's performance. He's very awkward around everyone. He doesn't really know quite what to say, and you want to learn more about his character, and as things escalate and become worse, you start becoming even more interested in what's going on. And The Graduate is easily one of the most entertaining films of all time, just because of how much of an experience it is. When you're watching it, you don't care about pace, you don't care about tone, you don't care about anything, any technical aspects. You're simply sitting there, immersed in the experience and in awe at everything going on screen. But it's not just that. The Graduate also has some absolutely phenomenal themes. Some of the themes in the film, basically, it follows a guy who is very, very shy. He's unsure what to do about his life. And in the brilliant opening scene, you started out with him, first going through the airport and hearing The Sound of Silence. And that song perfectly shows his emotions. He feels like he is silenced in the world. He lives a very dark, desolate world. And it comes in when he's feeling most depressed. He's unsure about everything. He's scared about growing up, and it's happened so quickly that he's unsure how to compensate with it. And then you get on to the scene where it's him sitting on the bed talking to his parents saying, "I don't want to be normal." It seems very odd at first that they would just add that line in at the very beginning that he says, "I don't want to live traditionally," but you realize as the film goes on what it means to him. The fact that he does not want to have a job, he doesn't want to have a house, 3 kids, he doesn't want to have a wife that he barely talks to, he doesn't want to have a normal desk job. He wants to live an extremely untraditional life where a lot of crazy things happen and where he wants to live what he wants to live. And you start to go on as you realize as he's talking to all these adults, he seems like a teenager in the way that he won't really look them in the eyes, or the way that he responds to them. He's unsure about what they're saying. He's generous enough and he's nice enough, but when talking to them, he's really laid back and he's unsure about what to say at every certain moment. That's something that I thought was terrifically incorporated into here, and there's a certain scene in the movie where it's a cutaway, because all of it is shot very close so that you feel the personal intensity from him as he's talking to these people. You feel the close-up, all the close-up shots are really well done because you feel the pressure that's going on him. But as he's walking, you realize everyone in there is wearing these really plain normal clothes, but Mrs. Robinson is like wearing this dress. And it's really well done how in one shot you only really see Mrs. Robinson in the background, even though there's about 20 people in the living room as he's walking to go upstairs into his bedroom. That was a perfect introduction for Mrs. Robinson. You see her right in that moment, but it even gets better from there. As you go home, as she starts seducing Benjamin, you start realizing who she is. You didn't need a lot of development. You get that later on. You learn about her, her marriage and everything, but at first you don't really know much about her, which is what makes her character so interesting. Something this film does really well is character introductions, because right away you know pretty much everything you need to know about the character. You know their personality, you understand why they would say certain things that they do. Something Mike Nichols did terrifically was just include perfect character introductions. You had development later on, and I'm really glad that they incorporated that into there, but even then, that didn't necessarily need to be in there because you had the perfect scenes of just discovering who they are through their emotions, through how they interact with people, and when you got the development, that improved the story and their characters at the same time. And something this film does really well is conveying that untraditional life. Benjamin does some very extreme, crazy things in this movie. You understand that he doesn't want to do exactly the same. And this comes in towards the later part of the movie. Now, I'm going to talk spoilers. I think I'll do this at the end, but there's a certain thing that the movie does at the very end. Not the very, very end, but something even a little bit before that I thought was absolutely brilliant. And they showed how this guy would do such insane things. You understood why, because of the way that he didn't want to live normally. The Graduate is one of the best reviewed films of the 60s, and it was a staple of that decade, and there's a good reason for it. Part of the reason is because of the way it combined drama and comedy so well, while also still being extremely entertaining. Now look, the drama absolutely is amazing, but something that the comedy does that I absolutely love is the way that it's very awkward, yet at the same time it feels scripted. That sounds a bit weird, but when people do awkward comedy, they try to make it spur of the moment so it feels really weird, but the way that they have it so that there's awkwardness in the characters in the way that they talk, like the plastics scenes where he says that there's a future in plastics. You understand right there and then why Benjamin does not like adults, why he doesn't feel much attachment to them, and why he feels weird being one. And the reason that comedy is so great is because it contributes to the story. It's not just there to tell a joke to make you laugh and then continue on with the story. It's incorporated into there, and it's not just a scene of awkward comedy. It is scripted comedy that is awkward in the moment because of how well acted and directed it is, and it contributes to the story. It displays a theme, and it's not just there to get a stupid laugh out of the audience. And another great thing that this movie does is that every scene serves a purpose. Every single scene in this movie is not useless at all. There is not a filler scene where they try to put a scene in here just to progress the story so that you can make the film a little longer. Though this is a very basic premise, basically it's just the woman seducing the man, you realize as it goes on, it becomes more layered and layered. You realize all these different things are happening, and I loved how each and every scene displayed something new. So there was always something interesting going on. You never felt bored because there was always something that was happening. It wasn't ever that there was a scene where characters were sitting down talking and it was just pure character development. They combined character development with the story, with the humor, with the drama, with everything that was going on, and that takes an extreme amount of talent, because it's amazing if you do one thing right, but if you do everything right and combine it all together, it's even better. And of course the performances in this film are just terrific from everyone. Dustin Hoffman played this graduate type perfectly because, as I said earlier, he is not the man who wants to live the traditional life, and he is also a man being scared of adulthood, and they showed that absolutely terrifically. I loved how Dustin Hoffman, even though he was 30-something, he played that graduate character perfectly, pretty much. He knew exactly what it's like to live in that era, and because he did that so well, you could relate to his character, you could relate the way that he does the things, and no, it's not that you are, sleeping with your husband's friend, it's that you related to his emotions, the way that he wanted to live his life. It was very, very well done. And of course I have to talk about it. The music in this film is just terrific. Simon and Garfunkel, I commonly consider the best musical group to have ever existed. I go back and forth on if it's them or David Bowie. I'm having a really hard time. But The Graduate is a great example of how they did their music. Their music was not just something to listen to and enjoy. Each of their songs displayed an emotion. And in this film, they are not only implemented into the film practically perfectly, but they all display emotion. The Sound of Silence is played about 4 or 5 times, and when they use it, you understand why, because it's all dark and it's very grim, and it's what the character is feeling in that moment. He's feeling sad, he's feeling depressed because of the weight of the situations going on. He's trying to live a life where there's not many consequences to the actions that he does. However, he realizes that there has to be, and when they use the Sound of Silence, it displays that amazingly. But also when they use Mrs. Robinson, his hope, his thoughts that even though the chances of, what he wants to do, I don't want to spoil it, but what he wants to do are practically impossible, you use Mrs. Robinson to display his hope through the music. This is a type of film that showed what I love about music and what I loved about film together in a fantastic, unanimous way. And I'm glad that The Graduate was able to do something like that, because I have not seen another film like The Graduate, and that's another thing that makes it great, is its uniqueness. Because this film is untraditional in practically every way, in its style, in its performances, but especially in its editing and the way that the story is told. Every single scene, you cannot predict what happens from scene to scene. Something new happens every single time, and I really appreciated that about The Graduate. The Graduate is honestly probably in my top 3 of all time now that I think about it. The more I talk about this film, the more I love it. There are so many themes, and there is so much to pick apart about this movie. One of these days, I hope that I can do a full analysis of everything, how each little detail in this film displays the theme, because there's so much to pick up on, so that in the 3rd and 4th and 5th viewing, you can revisit it and discover something new. It's the type of movie that when you watch it, you question why you don't watch it every single day, because it's entertaining, it's insightful, it's satirical, and it's honestly near perfection. I give The Graduate a 9.9 out of 10. Alright, so that's my score for the movie. Now, I am going to talk spoilers about it. So if you have not seen The Graduate, go out right now, rent it, buy it, I don't care, watch it, and come back to finish this review, because this movie needs to be seen by pretty much everybody. Anyway, so for spoilers, I would like to talk about the last 2 scenes. Now, the last 2 scenes of the movie are basically after Dustin Hoffman has been going around everywhere trying to get to the wedding. He ends up doing so, thinking it's too late at first, and then banging the windows and yelling Elaine. And what I love is how the theme was displayed of why Elaine chooses Benjamin over this man, because she was just married to this man. She was, if she didn't even notice Benjamin, nothing really bad would happen to her, only a lot would happen to him. But what I loved about it is how Elaine looked over to her parents, saw them mimicking words in their mouth, and then looked over to her now husband and saw him doing the exact same thing. And in that moment, she realized that her parents and who she was marrying were both traditional people. They were both not okay with what was out of the ordinary, and that Benjamin represented something that was different to her, something that was new, and something that she had not typically seen. And thankfully, I loved how they did not have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to represent this theme. It was represented in a quick moment, in a quick flash, in a realistic and stylistic way, and I absolutely love that about The Graduate. But it doesn't end there. As it continues, he goes back, they use the cross, which was absolutely hilarious. Imagine what that was like in the 60s. Him taking the cross, using it to swat off people, and then using it to close the doors. Just the fact that they could put that in a film during that decade was insane. But as it goes along, they get on the bus, they sit in the back, and suddenly the Sound of Silence starts to come on, and the character's face dropped from happy to sad, and this was absolutely phenomenal. Something I said earlier was that it is untraditional, it is not always the same, and they continue that with doing that, because this ending is unexpected. You think that it's going to go merrily for them, that they're going to go on from there, and they're going to remain happy, and the movie's going to end with a crowd pleaser, but you realize then that the characters are realizing the weight of their situations. That's another thing. Both of these characters characters, but especially Benjamin, are trying to live untraditional lives, but at the same time trying to live lives without consequence. And by doing so, when they realize the consequences of the situations that happened, they are unhappy with it, and that was absolutely terrific. And it would not be complete without The Sound of Silence, which was played there to near perfection. I absolutely love The Graduate, and just some of the smaller moments like that. That's why I want to do an analysis, so I could go through each of the smaller moments and just talk in full depth on how this film is near perfection. But anyways, that was my third TCM review in this series that I'm doing. The next one will be for Smokey and the Bandit, which is showing, I believe, on May 22nd, so around then, expect a review for it. But that aside, what are your thoughts on The Graduate? Comment in the comment section below, and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.